All right, let's dive into a book that's been kind of a legend for decades.
Yeah.
Aldous Huxley's The Doors of Perception.
Oh, a classic.
It's a deep dive this time into Huxley's, well, you could call it a wild ride with mescaline.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to see how it all connects to these big, I mean, really big ideas about how we experience the world, art, and even like the nature of reality.
You got it.
Huh.
So this book, it's not just like some psychedelic trip report, you know?
Right.
Huxley, he uses his experience to jump into all these fascinating questions about perception, about art, even religion, and what it actually means to be human.
Yeah, it's a book that, I think it still really connects with people today because we've all had those moments where you want to see beyond our normal,
Yeah.
everyday
Well,
reality.
we'll want to peek behind the curtain, right?
Yeah. And Huxley, he says, we're actually missing out on a lot of reality because of how our brains work.
It's true.
He calls the brain like a reducing valve,
Interesting.
that it filters out a ton of information just so we can function.
Makes sense.
It really makes you wonder, like, what amazing stuff are we just not seeing?
Right. What are we missing?
Yeah.
Well, Huxley, he believed there's this whole hidden dimension of beauty, of meaning,
Oh.
that we're usually just blind to.
Mm-hmm.
He describes his experiment with mescaline,
Right.
as if those filters were lifted, temporarily, of course.
Oh, wow.
Allowing him to see the world
Yeah.
with this amazing clarity and intensity that's usually hidden from us.
So he goes into a lot of detail about what it was like for him.
Oh, yeah, it's not just some vague,
Yeah.
whoa, man, everything was groovy.
Yeah.
He describes his perceptions
Mm-hmm.
with incredible detail. It's remarkable.
So, like, what kind of things?
Well, for example, he talks about just looking at a chair, an ordinary chair,
Right.
and seeing not just an object, but a miracle of design, intricate design.
Wow.
He even talks about his trousers, like his pants, taking on this, profound significance, each fold and crease appearing like a work of art.
Okay, that is pretty wild.
It is.
It makes you think about how we just take things for granted, We go through the motions,
We do.
not really seeing anything.
It's true.
Do you think he's saying, like, we're all capable of this kind of heightened awareness?
That's a great question, and I think that's part of what Huxley is getting at.
Okay.
He's not saying we all need to go out and experiment with mescaline,
Right.
but he's definitely making us reconsider our assumptions about perception and reality. Like,
Yeah.
what if there's so much more to see and experience than we normally allow ourselves to?
I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. It really is.
So how does this all connect to his thoughts on art?
Okay. So,
Because I know he was a huge fan of artists like Vermeer.
yes, he was.
Mm-hmm.
Huxley, he was convinced that great art is like a window into this unfiltered reality.
Oh, interesting.
He argued that artists like Vermeer were able to tap into this, heightened sense of perception
Mm-hmm.
and translate that into their work.
Wow.
He was especially captivated by Vermeer's use of light and color,
Uh-huh.
seeing it as a way of conveying this like eternal present and the infinite within everyday scenes.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, to you.
Yeah, some paintings, they really do have this power to transport you, to make you feel like you're seeing the world in a whole new way.
Exactly.
So that's what Huxley's talking about.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay.
He suggests that art can, offer us this glimpse of what's possible when we, break free from our usual ways of seeing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like art gives us a taste of that unfiltered reality
Yeah.
that he experienced with mescaline.
Wow, so he's not just saying art is pretty.
No, not at all.
He's saying it can actually change how we perceive the world.
Exactly. He saw art as a powerful tool
Mhm.
for expanding our awareness, connecting us to something
Yeah,
deeper than ourselves, bigger.
and it's not just visual art either, right?
No, not at all. He extends this idea to music, literature, even architecture.
So this is making me want to go to a museum like right now.
Me too.
But it also makes you wonder, if art can do this,
Mm-hmm.
maybe there are other ways to get a similar effect.
Like what?
Like what about meditation or spiritual practices, things like that?
That's a great point, and that's where Huxley takes us next, actually.
Okay.
He sees this fascinating connection between his experience with mescaline and these descriptions of mystical states, found in different cultures, religions.
Oh, wow.
He explores this possibility that all these practices, they're aiming in their own ways
Mm-hmm.
to achieve this similar state of, heightened awareness,
Yeah.
a sense of transcendence
Yep.
beyond the ordinary limitations of the ego.
So he's not necessarily like endorsing any one religion
No, not at
or
all.
spiritual path,
No,
but he's seeing this common thread,
exactly.
and this desire to connect with something bigger than ourselves.
That's it. That's it. It's about pushing beyond the everyday, the mundane,
Yeah.
connecting with something more profound. He's
Mm.
not saying it's easy.
Right.
He's very aware of the risks involved,
Right.
with substances and spiritual practices.
Of course.
But he's urging us to at least consider
Yeah.
the possibilities.
This is already making me think in a completely different way.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point of Huxley. It's interesting how Huxley connects all this to our experience of the world,
Yeah.
particularly in the context of modern life.
Right.
He wasn't exactly like a huge fan of industrialization.
Yeah, he was pretty critical of what he saw as like the downsides of all that, right? He
Right.
wasn't like anti-technology,
Right.
but he definitely had some concerns.
Oh, absolutely. He was deeply concerned about what he called the dehumanizing effects of it all.
Yeah.
Industrialization and, this rampant materialism.
Mm.
He felt like we were becoming too focused on efficiency and productivity, acquiring stuff
Yeah.
and losing touch with our sense of wonder
Yeah.
and connection to something bigger than ourselves.
I think a lot of people can relate to that today,
I think so too.
even more so than in Huxley's time, right?
Probably.
We're constantly bombarded with information,
We
pressure to be productive,
absolutely
to be connected.
constantly.
It's easy to feel like you're just going through the motions.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, so what was Huxley's take on that?
Well, he worried that all this, focus on the material
Yeah.
was blinding us to the beauty, the mystery that's all around us. In the
Mhm.
book, he describes this walk he took through a garden
Uh-huh.
while he was under the influence of mescaline,
Okay.
and how, like, even the simplest things, the veins in a leaf,
Wow.
the texture of a flower,
Yeah.
filled him with this sense of awe and wonder.
That's beautiful.
He contrasts that with the way, most people just rush through their days, barely noticing the world.
Yeah, it's like we've traded our sense of wonder for a to-do list.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so what's the solution then? I mean, is he saying we should all drop out of society and live in a commune?
Well, no, not exactly. He doesn't, prescribe a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
But he does offer some interesting possibilities.
Like what?
Well, he talks about the importance of cultivating a more, contemplative approach to life,
Okay.
taking the time to actually see, appreciate the world around us.
Mm.
He emphasizes the power of art, of nature,
Yeah.
to help us reconnect with that sense of wonder.
Yeah, no, that resonates with me.
Does it?
For sure. I've had moments where just being in nature
Yeah.
or looking at like a beautiful piece of art,
Right.
it just completely shifted my perspective.
It can.
Yeah, and it makes you feel more alive,
Exactly. Huxley believed that these kinds of experiences, they can help us break free
Okay.
from the mental ruts we get stuck in, and open us up to these new ways of seeing, being in the world.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't necessarily saying everyone needs to go on a psychedelic journey,
Right.
but he was definitely encouraging us to find ways to awaken to the richness of experience
Yeah.
that's available to us, if only we can open our eyes and see it.
It's a powerful message, especially, today.
It is.
When it's so easy to just get caught up in all the hustle and bustle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But we can't talk about the doors of perception
Sure.
without, addressing some of the controversies. I mean, some people have accused Huxley of like romanticizing drug use.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that criticism?
Well, it's a valid concern,
Yeah.
and it's important to approach these discussions with nuance.
Right.
Huxley himself, he acknowledged the potential dangers of these substances.
Yeah.
He was very clear that he wasn't advocating for reckless experimentation.
Right.
He was writing during a time when the understanding of psychedelics
Yeah.
was very different.
Well, of course.
It's crucial to view his work within its historical context.
So maybe it's less about like judging Huxley by today's standards
Right.
and more about appreciating his attempt to grapple with these complex questions
Exactly.
about consciousness,
Uh-huh.
about the human experience.
I think that's a much fairer way to look at it.
Yeah.
His intention was not to promote drug use,
Right.
but to explore their potential
Yeah.
as tools for philosophical inquiry, for personal growth.
So like,
He believed that they could offer valuable insights into the nature of perception of the mind,
mm-hmm.
but he was always, cautious about the risks.
It's interesting how the conversation around psychedelics has really shifted
It has.
in recent years,
It has,
with more research, exploring potential therapeutic application.
Right, right.
Do you think Huxley's work played a role in that?
I think it's fair to say his writing contributed
Mm.
to a wider cultural conversation about these substances. Yeah.
He brought these topics into the mainstream.
Right.
He challenged conventional thinking, sparked curiosity,
Yeah.
whether or not you agree with his conclusions.
Mm.
He definitely helped pave the way
Yeah.
for a more open, a more nuanced discussion
Right.
about the potential benefits
Mm-hmm.
and risks of psychedelics.
It's fascinating to think about how a single book
It is.
can have such a lasting impact,
Yeah.
on the way we think about these issues.
Absolutely.
But it's also important to remember that Huxley's work,
Yes.
it's about so much more than just drugs.
Yes, it is.
It's about this human quest
It is.
to understand our place in the universe,
It's about, yeah.
to explore the limits of our perception,
Absolutely.
to find meaning and connection in a
Yes.
world that can often feel really chaotic and overwhelming.
Absolutely. His experience with mescaline, it was really just a catalyst for
Absolutely.
these broader explorations. Yeah.
The Doors of Perception, it's ultimately a book about the potential of human consciousness,
Okay.
the power of art, of nature to inspire us, and the importance of staying curious,
Yeah.
open to new ways of seeing the world.
As we're wrapping up our deep dive into the doors of perception,
Yeah.
it strikes me that Huxley's experience with
Mm.
mescaline,
Yeah.
it wasn't just about the drug itself.
No, I agree.
It was more like a jumping off point
Yeah.
to explore like how we perceive reality and what might be possible. If we could kind of break free from
Yeah.
our usual way of seeing.
He seemed really fascinated
Yeah.
by the idea that our brains might be, well, limiting our experience.
Yeah, and he used that analogy, like
Yeah.
the brain as a reducing valve.
Right, filtering out all this information.
Yeah, to prevent us from being overwhelmed, right?
Yeah, but he also suggested
Yeah.
that maybe, this filtering, it might be screening out a whole realm of beauty, of meaning.
Wow. And he saw art and mystical experiences
Yeah.
as like potential ways to get around this filter,
Mm-hmm.
to access this richer, more vibrant reality.
Exactly. He believed art could give us these glimpses into
Yeah.
this world beyond,
Beyond our everyday perception.
and that mystical traditions,
Yeah.
they pointed towards this possibility of transcending those limitations
Limitations.
of the ego
Yeah.
and experiencing this profound sense of unity.
So what about those of us who aren't,
Yeah.
artists or mystics?
Yeah.
Are we just stuck with this like limited perception?
Well, I don't think Huxley would say that.
Okay.
He believed there were lots of paths,
Yeah.
to expand our awareness.
Like what?
Well, things like contemplation of nature,
Yeah.
mindfulness practices,
Mm-hmm.
even just cultivating a more attentive and appreciative way of being in the world.
So it's not necessarily about like
Right.
seeking out these really extraordinary experiences,
Not necessarily.
but more about
It's more about paying attention to the richness that's already there
that's already there.
in our everyday lives.
It makes you wonder what we might discover,
It does.
if we could really shed those filters
Yeah.
and experience the world
Right.
with the same like awe and wonder that Huxley describes.
Well, and that's really the invitation, isn't it?
Yeah.
That Huxley extends to us
Through the doors of
to
perception.
question our assumptions about reality,
Yeah.
to explore the potential of our own consciousness,
Hmm.
and to embrace a more expansive
Yeah.
and meaningful way of being in the world.
I think that's a really beautiful way to sum it up.
It is. It really is.
It's a good reminder
Yeah,
that there's always more to discover,
absolutely.
within ourselves
Within,
and in the world around us.
without.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired
Yeah.
to go out and explore,
Me too.
some of those hidden dimensions.
Yeah.
What doors of perception might we each have waiting to be opened?
That's the question we'll leave you with today.
Yeah.
What wonders might you discover if you dare to look beyond the everyday
Mm-hmm.
and embrace that extraordinary potential
That extraordinary potential.
that lies within you?